If she has to compete against boys in her sport, not only will they be on her playing field that she has to compete against them, they will be in her locker room, they will be in her showers, they will be in her bathroom, they will be in her hotel room when she travels with her team, all under the Equality Act. This is wrong. That will put trans rights above women's rights, above the rights of our daughters, our sisters, our friends, our grandmothers, our aunts. It's too much.
Of course, none of that the case, but regardless, as you can see, Marjorie Taylor Greene back in the news again, unfortunately, and again for all the wrong reasons. Apparently, she didn't learn a lesson that after getting stripped of her committee assignments over conspiracy theories and incendiary rhetoric. The Congresswoman, a different one, however, Marie Newman of Illinois. She has an office, and it's right across from Greene's. By the way, Congressman Newman's got a transgender daughter, and she says Greene is trying to block a bill that prevents discrimination based off of gender or sexual preference, and she calls that objection disgusting, immoral, and evil. Again, the Congresswoman's words. Newman put up a rainbow transgender flag right outside of her office to make the point, but apparently Greene wouldn't let it go even there. The QAnon-loving conspiracy theorist who doubted the science when it came to COVID, questioned whether or not 9/11 even happened, and whether or not school shootings occurred. I could go on here, but why? She hung a banner, did Greene, outside her office that says there are two genders, male and female, trust the science. Apparently now Greene an adherent of science. By the way, a guy who was a close friend of Greene's, who worked with her over the years as a close confidant on many of her issues or causes, if you want to call them that. He was at the Capitol, and he was involved in the riots. And the day after the riots, he thought it was a good idea to cut this video.
We were all there. It was not Antifa, and it was not BLM. It was Trump supporters that did that yesterday. I'm the first to admit it. Being one myself.
So even that idiot disagreeing with Senator Ron Johnson, an all-in Trumper, who said this lie on the floor of the Senate this week.
Some obviously didn't fit in, and he describes four different types of people: plainclothes militants, agents provocateurs, fake Trump protesters, and then disciplined uniformed column of attackers. I think these are the people that probably planned this.
I want to bring in my guest, Congressman Don Beyer. He's a Democrat from Virginia. He sits on the Ways and Means Committee. And Congressman, I want to talk dollars and cents with you, but you know, as much as I try to, you get this insanity and you have to live through it with some of your colleagues. You were there when what seemed to be a non-debatable issue of an Equality Act somehow got hijacked by Congresswoman Greene. But I should note, her Republican colleagues, for the most part, they stood with her, didn't they?
Yeah, it's really disappointing because, you know, it's amazing, Rich. Most Americans think that it already is illegal to discriminate against somebody because of their sexual preference or because of their gender identification. But there's something like 30 states where you can say, I'm not going to hire you, or I'm not going to serve you a dinner, or you can't live here, or any of those kinds of things. And, you know, what Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's crazy, has put out there is this fiction that somehow transgender, you know, born biologically a boy and now identified as a woman are going to take over women's sports. To rebut that, I read a whole bunch of articles this morning online trying to see how much of this is real. And, you know, as in anything, there's one case in 1,000 where you can make a case for it. But as they say, data is not the plural of anecdote. And this is just not a real thing.
Brings to a broader issue because obviously after the riots, I hope the vast majority of Americans believe that we need to have a commission akin to what we did after 9/11 to figure out what happened, what precipitated it, what were the causation factors, who knew what and when, to really get down to that awful day that you lived through. But at least with 9/11 in the aftermath, we could agree on what happened, the facts that we all saw play out in front of us. You have people that share your title in the House and the Senate as part of Congress who can't even accept reality. How do you go about trying to solve something if you can't even agree on a common set of facts?
Rich, you go to one of the most existential challenges facing our American democracy. The fact that we are really operating on two different sets of facts. You know, when I was growing up, because I'm way older than you, we just had the three TV stations, the three big networks, and, the Washington Post and a lot of local newspapers, which was a good thing. And now with 800 channels, and people tend to, if you're on the right, you may watch Fox News all day long and nothing else. If you're on the far left, you may watch something else all day and never learn anything. So somehow, one of the big challenges in the coming years is to bring people back to a common set of history, of facts, of data, of what's going on in front of us. Otherwise, we're just talking over each other.
I look back in your career, and before you were congressman, you were attorney general, you were lieutenant governor, but you also had a couple other jobs that I think could give an interesting perspective as we're talking about why we need the stimulus, why this idea of a minimum wage and $15, is it affordable, is it important? You, for 14 years, if I got this right, and please correct me, you were chair of a Jobs for Virginia graduates. And really what I understood it did is it kept kids from dropping out of school, and they got their degrees, and then they got into the workforce. And you also dealt on the business side with economic recovery for Virginia. Instead of us talking about numbers and 1.9 trillion, put it in the perspective, after COVID, this population that's at risk, not only of young people, but also, people that are barely getting by and not getting by, and why $15 isn't just a number, but is a difference between them being able to, not have to supplement what little they're getting by going to the food bank.
Rich, you stated it so beautifully. But let me just quote Barack Obama and many others who said, what kind of society do we have when somebody can work full-time 52 weeks a year at $7.25 an hour and can't even afford a two-bedroom apartment in any county in America? That's like $15,000. How do you get by with anything with that? Rich, one of among the other wonderful jobs I've been privileged to have was as ambassador to Switzerland for 4 years. And one of the things we discovered right away, we have the Marines or the Honor Guard, and at embassies all around the world, they do a Toys for Tots program at Christmas every year. Well, they did it in Switzerland, found out they couldn't find any children they give the Toys for Tots to, because the minimum wage there is about $48,000 a year. And the crime rate was way, way down, and the murder rate was way down. And they had empty jails. And, there's so many, and they spent very little on social programs because they didn't need to. We're paying for it one way or the other, but mostly we're paying for it in ways that hurt us rather than help us.
I spoke earlier this program with Senator Van Hollen about the prospects of this when it gets in a divided Senate, but I know this is going to pass tomorrow in the House. What I think that there's a misread on the other side of the aisle is I keep looking at these Republican governors and Republican mayors who say, listen, you don't get the funding here. I'm going to have to raise taxes on my constituents, or I'm going to have to cut services that everyone's going to feel, like cops and firefighters and hospital workers, crazy stuff in the middle of a pandemic or as we're trying to get the economy recovered. Am I wrong here, or isn't this one of these things, it's not just Washington talking across each other, people at home are going to feel this?
Oh, very much so. And the local governments especially, maybe half the states have actually done okay. But virtually every local government that I know of has really been hurt by this. And when you talk local government, you're then saying the police, the firefighters, the teachers, the people that pick up the trash, the child protective service workers, the people that really make our communities whole. And when you think, too, about what governors have to do, Rich, one of the good news is state after state is passing $15 minimum wages on their own. But then the ones that don't are the ones that are going to be left behind and mired in poverty and are not going to have the economic growth. Once again, good policy in the middle run, long run, always becomes good politics. So when they do bad policy, it's going to be bad for them too.
Listen, I know the Equality Act is going to get through, and I know the stimulus is going to pass, at least in the House. We'll see where it goes in the Senate. But I wish you all the patience of Job here to get through with some of, both the obstructionary and just the craziness that's just a waste of time, and that's a commodity we don't have enough of today in America. But Congressman, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rich, very much. It was lovely talking to you.
All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. On the other side of the break, I'm going to catch you up on stories we spent a lot of time on RFL covering, including the family separations. Good news for once to report. Apparently, a lot of kids and families, they've identified where they are, and hopefully we can see some reunifications. We'll have the details on that. Plus, we'll take you to Texas, where, not shockingly, the governor, he's angry about all the problems facing his state, but he's shouldering the blame specifically to ERCOT. We'll have his soundbite. And also, we have news here as it relates to the problems with school reopenings. We talked about this all hour last night. Well, we'll have an update. And a certain mayor of New York City is taking on a certain governor of New York, Bill de Blasio. I don't know if he's learned his lesson or not, but he says now Governor Cuomo ought to be investigated. We'll have that and much more right after this.